and welcome to this week's Analysts Gone Wild. I think we're on episode 11. Is that it, Sam? And
11,
we got some new people to the crew this week, and let's kick off. I'm Robert Kramer with more insights and strategy, and we have a few new people, Julie and John joining Michael and Sam and I. Why don't we kind of go around the horn and just quick intros, and I'm going to try this week to go through our stories a little bit quicker, but if you have questions, please raise your hand virtually, and then we'll get to it and try and get through some of the collaboration with our guests. So, Julie, why don't you go first, introduce yourself, and we'll kind of go to John and Michael and Sam.
Sure, that's great. Thanks, Robert. I'm Julie Geller. I'm over at Invotech Research. I'm a principal analyst over there, and I act as counselor as well. And I guess I specialize in everything GTM, AI, account-based marketing is my first love, of course, and then, adding on any CX just to top it off. So I'm really excited to be here. Thanks.
Great. John?
Well, listen, I've been around, as I say, for about 40 years in high tech and procurement. When I sold my solution provider company back in 2001, I started the Procurement Insights blog and have been running that ever since. Did a little bit of a show called PI Window on Business from 2009, 2019, a podcast. And I'm just, each and every day, I'm excited to be part of this industry, both high tech and procurement.
Great. Michael?
Sure. Michael Fawcett. I'm the founder, CEO of Arian Research. We've been around for about 3.5 years. We focus mostly on CX, CRM, and AI, especially agentic and generative.
Great. And Sam?
Hey, everyone. Sam Gupta, roughly 20 years in the space, covering enterprise software. Elevate IQ is the enterprise analyst and advisory firm. On that note, Robert, over to you.
Yeah, so just before getting to the first story, my background is enterprise data management and ERP and supply chain, which obviously we have a lot going on with the supply chain lately, but we'll see if our stories collide with that today with all the tariffs. But let's jump into the first story, Sam, and let's see what the team has to say about Resulticks. And I was kind of talking about this before we all got on the show live here, is that a lot of these companies have their AI agents, and they're obviously going to influence, their customers and, who's working with these types of different frameworks from AI perspective. But is this anything new? I know, Julie, you kind of said you cover this space a little bit. I don't know if this audience is going to benefit from this. Is this standard or is something really special here? Because it seems kind of standard to me.
Well, I think that they're trying to specialize in that speed to insight game. I guess that's what they're trying to really reduce, and they're doing it for their specific audience. Definitely specializing in e-commerce for sure. I think what's great about what they're doing is they really honed in on what they need as key differentiators. But I think that the Genie is really, it's not a magic bullet. I think it really depends on pre-planning and making sure that you have those cases loaded up so your dashboard aligns really well. And then you can really get the most actionable insights out of it. So definitely work to be done. Yeah.
Isn't it all about the data? So like a lot of these companies talk about features and functionality, but not about really the business impact and how I'm going to get my company ready with the people and the processes to actually take advantage of things like this. And then what's next after things of like this nature, like the Genie and the AI agents with this? Like, what's next year? Is this just today they're saying this, but like, how am I going to be able to benefit long-term when I buy a package like this or something?
Robert, look at the whole overall solution, because that actually makes it a little more interesting in context. The result solution set actually has the CDP built in, has the omni-channel orchestration, and then if you add the agentic piece, that's just a simpler, more natural way for the department to interact with the solution. So I think the whole thing actually makes sense to me, and you're right, the data. So having the CDP as a part of that solution inherently makes it, so that it could be, if implemented correctly, more valuable.
See, the first thing that comes to my mind is the old days of subliminal placement on Saturday morning cartoons, and then the road blocking of commercials on different channels. I don't know if any of you remember those days where if you switch channels, the same set of commercials would be running. And now you look at the, like, for example, if I do a search on a Facebook and I happen to like a particular product, it's amazing. Within minutes, I get all these new products coming up saying, we're listening, we're there. Or if I buy something on Amazon, the point that I look at is it depends, isn't it? And Julie, I'll defer to you. Is dealing with a mass market product, a commodity product, or are you dealing with a specialized product? I mean, that's where I think the fork in the road comes in, because with one, it's mass market and highly scalable, and it's more straightforward. When you start getting more complicated products or solutions, I mean, now you're getting to the personal relationship, the experience and expertise behind the product. I mean, do you know what I'm saying, Julie?
Yeah, I think that, like, the definitely the audience segmentation, I think, is going to be key here. To really figure out to what degree that you can get that personalization layer in there and what makes that different. So definitely rooting around in there is going to be key to differentiate with everything else. But I think it's really those insights too. So, like, on that level, right, on that granular level, what kinds of insights is it going to surface that's going to be just that much different than the regular players that we see at the table? That is something that I'm really interested, because it's going to be over time as well. I mean, I don't think that it would necessarily be up to snuff right away. It would definitely take some time to learn. So.
Okay, so it's very interesting, guys. And, I was looking, I've never come across these guys before. I don't know if you have come across them. I didn't know which ecosystem they are part of. And I was really looking forward to Michael's commentary. And the reason for that is because you mentioned they are sort of in the CDP play. And CDP has been all over the place. We know that from the, market perspective. And when I read the real-time audience engagement, the impression that I get in my head from the CX market perspective is they must align with, Bravos of the world. Pegasystems is doing some work there. ServiceNow, maybe not. I don't know whether you guys see them there or not. But that's how I see the real-time audience engagement market. Maybe Marketo, from the Adobe perspective, they might be there too. So I don't know. I mean, if they are pure play CDP or they are really the real-time audience engagement. So that would be my first question. And then now, obviously, they are doing a lot more from the AI perspective. Michael.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, the thing about them is they're actually in more than that one segment, but the solution we're looking at, this Resolve solution, is really marketing focused. So it does kind of fall back to that somewhat limiting paradigm about CDPs, that they're for marketing, because I mean, they can be, but they also, as most companies have moved kind of beyond that, like Salesforce Data Cloud, for example, goes across all their solutions now and provides data across everything. But I mean, as far as a marketing package and the idea of moving to more dynamic journeys and, more personalized or maybe individualized offerings because of the real-time data and interaction, it's interesting. It's something that it's not unique to them. I mean, certainly Salesforce, Adobe, there's several, of the other larger market players that have gone heavy in this direction with agents across all their offerings, but marketing, particularly in this case.
Just a quick question, Julie. I mean, how do you think this really influences the marketing teams? Does it make them 40% more productive? Does it make them even more productive? Do they have to go back because the data wasn't right? Are they reaching the right customers? Are they actually making more deals because of this? The sales department? I mean, is this? I'm just wondering, just from your perspective, that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, actually, because I think that's where my comment comes in about setting it up. The Genie really isn't a magic bullet. I think that you really do need to get into the pre-planning of cases and making sure that your dash aligns with what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It's not a set it and forget it. I think that really the technology is only as good as the strategy. And I know that's probably been said a lot, but I do think to get what you want out of it, it's going to, it's going to take some torquing for sure. I think if you compare it to the Adobe platform and what they just released and what they're trying to do, creating their own sort of sphere of like, do everything, all your campaign planning, all your insights, whatever. I mean, right down to complex animations and whatever else. I think all of those things that they're trying to do there as your one-stop shop. I mean, we've been craving that forever. We don't want to disperse budget in this area and that area and whatever else. So if we do see a lot of marketers trying to get toward that sort of the one-stop solution, then, this is something that I think it may be in a kind of precarious position of trying to defend itself as something that is kind of a bolted on kind of CDP situation. So, I mean, I don't know. It could be viewed that way anyways. I think that the CFO would definitely be sitting down with you and being like, why? So, yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah. Sam, any closing discussions before we go to the next one?
Let's go to the next one, I guess. I think it's pretty good.
Okay. So Simpplr expands its extensibility. So you guys might have some more information about this company, but I think it's one of those things that they're involved in a lot of things from a data perspective and the infrastructure that they work with. But Sam, maybe you have some more information on this. I'm not too familiar with them.
Yeah, so I'll start off. So here they are calling themselves as more of the EX unification platform. And this is not the first time that we have seen in one particular department, I would say. And I like to call these offerings as more of the department focused offerings, whether you have HR, marketing or procurement, it doesn't matter, right? But these guys are saying that they are EX unification platform. We have seen similar trend in the MarTech space as well. Composable technologies, they were trying to do that. But in my mind, when I look at this, I mean, it's some sort of middleware. Maybe easier middleware. And they are trying to bring all of the HR technologies together. And here they are saying HRIS, ITSM, LMS, all of the HR technologies. So I'm not too excited as such, to be completely honest.
Sam, that's a great way to say that. When I read this, that's exactly my thought. Yeah, it's not that exciting, but I mean, it looks an awful lot. If you strip it back, it looks an awful lot like a portal and an intranet. And then they added this capability to bring some of your apps into the UI. So it's middleware to connect everything and some type of a portal UI that employees can use to have access through one portal instead of going to different apps. I mean, it's not new for sure.
Well, you know what crossed my mind? There's three things that jumped out at me: employee experience platform, effort or system integration or connection, and critical data into daily workflows. I mean, that's the mantra for anything, whether it's HR, whether it's procurement or whatever. And I go back to the importance of using an agent-based model within an internal and an external enterprise. Far too often, connectivity is put to, and to your point, a portal. It's not really. It's more of a technology hookup. And that's what I'm getting from this, a technology hookup. I'm not getting that agent-based understanding as to how they connect all these things in a relevant way to make sure they're getting the right data from the right sources to the right places. So is this just strictly a technology hookup, or is there a strategy and implementation, development and implementation strategy behind it? Do you know what I'm saying?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Actually, it's really interesting. I think that like the success of this is going to hinge on HR, like internal communications and IT kind of refining the tech stack too, because you've seen this so many times where you go in and there's so many applications and then it's like suck it all into the same interface. And now you've got all this noise and it didn't do what it's supposed to do. And then also compliance. Nobody's going in and doing the things that they absolutely need to do with your, like whatever it might be, HRIS, your ITSM, like whatever the application is that you're sucking in that you need for it to do, whether it be like creating tickets for IT, you're not going to do it in there because it's just a big mess. I think a classic case is also things like when you have like a Slack channel, right? And the Slack channels are there's so many Slack channels in an organization. You're not just going to like set it and forget it. It's what's the strategy? I would like to see something that would be that agentic kind of portion of the plan that would go through things and give you like an audit, evaluate something that's like new and fresh.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, there's a trend towards reducing your technology stack. So obviously this is a play with that, but how do you think this handles from a security perspective? Good? because it's also doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even really cut back on your technology stack. It's really, if you think about it, it's like this front end to all the rest of the things you think. And so it supposedly makes onboarding easier. It should make your daily operations easier if you go to one place and, in a browser window to do all the different things you're going to do versus going to the different applications. Do people use it? I mean, I don't know. I think that's a good question. And again, I'm not sure. There's no agentic piece to this. There's no, there, at least right now, it doesn't appear to be any sort of special AI pieces that make it, more usable, more functional. It really does seem like they put a window into your business and they think this will be useful because you can go to one place and look in.
Great. Sam, any closing comments? And we'll kind of go to the next one.
Yeah, so I'll keep it brief. So I would say, they are definitely going to have a place, I guess. And Michael is right that they are probably increasing the number of technologies. But again, this is all driven by sales. So in this particular case, obviously, they are dealing at the HR department level. So their friction is going to be less and they can adopt these technologies far more. But from the organizational perspective, you are probably increasing the number of technologies. So he's right. So I'll go to the next one.
Great. Well, so we have some Canadian companies involved here, at least one with with iFabric purchasing BlueCherry ERP, and I know there's probably a ton of needs that they are working towards to have with their supply chain interest, obviously in this. But BlueCherry, Sam, you're probably very familiar with them and the need for the iFabric, which is was a textile company for the healthcare industry. Their advanced technologies, is that a big deal from an inventory control perspective? Is it going to help them with their supply chain? Their advanced technologies better than the competition? Sam, what's your thoughts? Let you kind of pick this off.
Yeah, so number one, a little clause there that we have 3 Canadians here on this panel, and there was no conflict of interest with this story.
I was worried about that. I was thinking my name ahead of time.
But on this story, I guess so this story is of iFabric adopting which is the ERP BlueCherry, right? So BlueCherry would fall under that niche ERP solution. And in general, when you look at textile, apparel, these industries are extremely different. So your vanilla ERPs, they are probably not going to work because the kind of inventory and the planning that you are going to need for apparel is very different. Generally, the vendors that you are looking at in this market are Infor, AppChain, and 90% of them, they got into this market because they acquired somebody like BlueCherry. Because it's a very small market to tap into. They have very unique processes.
What is the processes you're referring to within the textile industry? Is it because of the just where they're buying it from, the way their supply chain operates, their inventory control, the way that they the supplier network? What are you referring to?
Yeah, so the best way to understand this is going to be, Robert, and I don't know if you're going to like this comment or not, but generally the ERP and marketing, they don't get along. And when I say marketing and ERP, they don't get along, this is very real in the apparel industry. Because when you look at the workflow of the designers, and designers are designers, the merchandiser, and the planners, they are sort of the bread and butter for the majority of the design or apparel companies, because the more distinct your product is going to be, the more distinct your design is going to be. That's what is going to do well in the market. So generally, their workflow starts literally with the Illustrator from Adobe perspective. And Illustrator needs to be integrated with ERP. Now, how many people are going to like that idea? And here, that's what happens, to be completely honest, okay? Marketers don't appreciate that. Designers don't appreciate that. But here, you're sampling the procurement processes. The way workflows are done, they are uniquely different. And that's just one thing. Then you have the inventory that is very complex. The way the planning is done, style, season, etc. It's just it's a different beast.
I mean, I think the thing you point out, Sam, is that, vertically focused especially in some industries, ERP solutions are very popular in those industries. And a lot of the horizontal solutions even go at this by trying to build templates and add, special pieces of functionality that meet that industry. So, Oracle's has been for years moving more vertically focused, even in the CRM space. Salesforce does that. So, I mean, seeing especially, and I don't know anything about apparel particularly, but I do know it's a complex supply chain space. And so, having a specialty solution, I don't know, it seems like a pretty good play.
It's also
if I could add something in here, and I don't want to be contrarian on this, but when you talk about the ERP world, procurement, and no disrespect to marketing, procurement was always an afterthought with ERP. It was like the Oliver Twist story. Here's our ERP, we've selected it. Now tell us what you need. We'll try to plug something in on that regard. I mean, those were the days of Oracle saying they wouldn't get out of bed for less than $1 million to build a bridge between what they called and it was a derogative term, bolt-on system. Beyond the technology, and again, this reads like an ad. It reads like, to me, like everything else. We're going to do this. We're going to capture that. What I'd really like to see is a pre and post assessment balanced scorecard where they actually say, look, this is what we expect to achieve. Boom, 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 boom. And then once the confetti of the PR release has settled down and been dusted away, here's where we are post. I mean, how many of these are we really looking at? My important thing is you'd be interested to see what's on the other end of this. What happens in 6 months? What happens in 12 months? What happens in 18 months? I mean, how do you verify that this is going to accomplish the things that they list? And I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying is that, there's a high rate of initiative failures. We've got to be able to address that generationally. I don't know. Is that contentious? Am I poking somebody with a stick or what?
No, but I mean, this is advertising. So you're correct. It is advertising, but I mean, I'm sure that if you dig into how they sell, they have some, data around results, value, those sorts of things. At least I hope so, because otherwise I'm suspecting they're not that successful.
I feel like that's the thing though, Michael. Like, I just didn't feel like this really highlighted it's very top level. It's very hard for us to kind of ascertain anything. And then it leaves me wondering, I mean, how many of the executives that did pick this on the SLT had experience with BlueCherry prior to? Is it, I mean, you can't figure out if it's something that, is something that's like comfortable, or whether it's something that it feels very leading. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like it's a good teaser into the industry. So, if I'm in this industry, I see this, I go, I should talk to them. I'll put them on my short list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Specialized.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I mean, what do you think from a perspective of, like even the environmental or the compliance, like EPA and things like that? I mean, that's huge in the textile business. Does this application take care of things like that and track things of that nature?
Not entirely sure if they are going to have that, to be completely honest. And I don't know if these guys are really worried because they have not highlighted that. But what I would like to point out is just the reinforcement of what you guys were saying about this being an ad, especially around advanced AI capabilities, which is literally printed everywhere. And this is not going to be anything close to AI because you do require billions and billions of dollars of investment, and a niche solution like this, I mean, they are great for vertical solution, but advanced AI capabilities, I would doubt.
Yeah.
Okay. Any closing remarks from a Canada perspective?
I think I said enough. So, Julie, it's your turn.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling good about it. Yeah.
Robert, we all know this. I mean, if this has Canada printed, this is the best ERP out there. So
what do we all think about the tariffs that happened?
I think maybe this isn't the show for that discussion.
But I will do a plug for. I wrote an article for an Italian magazine where I compared the 1930 Smoot-Hawley Act to the current proposed tariffs, and you'd be surprised as to how many similarities they are over and over. And I remember I interviewed Stockwell Day during the Buy American thing, and he's, the conclusion was economically, it never really accomplishes what it's supposed to accomplish. In many cases, these tariff wars or trade wars are more politically motivated to appease the voters rather than actually accomplishing anything. And so the 1930 Smoot-Hawley Act compared to what we're seeing now, and even with the limited scope by American, we're going to come out wondering why we did it in the first place. But it's like the Godfather movie. Remember that line? Every now and then we got to have a war to get the bad blood out, and then we can go on. That's my take on it.
Well, let's move on to Talkdesk After Hours serves up customers. So another discussion with this might be in your wheelhouse, Julie, with AI and customer experience.
Yeah.
I think always the goal of this is for the customer benefit, and how this encourages better service and more efficiency. So Julie, is your take on this? What's your thoughts?
Well, it's kind of funny because I think it's more on what John was saying in the last article. Like, I'm sorry, but it does feel really much like an advertorial to me. I don't understand. I don't understand these stats at all. I feel like this is really not serving the customer. And I think when you're looking at the CX, metrics, like I just want something deep, really much deeper. So reducing wait times by 98%. It's impressive, but like it can't just be about shaving seconds off the clock, really. I think that 45% of interactions are handled through self-service. Like, what does that leave us with the other more than half, right? What is it even talking to? So I'm not sure what these
what are the customers saying? They're saying,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a very exciting thing to say that I now have an autonomous agent, just like I used to have a chat bot that'll pick up after hours. Okay, cool. I mean, that's good. And hopefully the autonomous agent's better than the old chat bot. But otherwise, I mean,
Yeah, I'm not seeing the standout here, especially in this category where it's a pretty aggressive category with a lot of really amazing advancements from different platforms. So yeah, I kind of it's lackluster.
And the other thing is a lot of this implementation really is about hybrid too, right? And they don't really talk about that at all. How do you make this work with a human AI collaborative kind of work? And I mean, maybe most of their customers are small, so maybe they don't have 24/7 support. So I suppose this would be valuable if you didn't, because it would be an inexpensive way to have some sort of it. But I still think you're missing that really important piece of how do you make this a hybrid deployment.
Well, and you know what? I remind prescriptions calling into the local drugstore. A few years ago, you used to call, be on hold. If the pharmacist was busy, you could be on hold for 5-10 minutes. Now you have automatic. You punch in the prescription number, your date of birth, and it's automatically filled. From a customer standpoint, I like that. But that's one of the few instances where I had a positive experience versus the experience of going through a series of levels just to access a human being to talk. It all depends on what your service and product are you're trying to support, and I think that's why don't they talk about specifics like that? Where is this going to? What industry is this best going to serve? What situations is this hybrid going to be most effective in?
I think it's weird too, because they talk about Evera Health, and then so if you're looking at critical industries like healthcare, finance, and whatever else, what are those kind of nuances that we don't know about that it handles? Because to me, when I think about the way that they position these stats, I can't see that they're servicing that kind of industry, right? Like, I mean, what are you doing that's special? So yeah.
Don't you think you spend more time on the phone trying to get to the result because of this? So say you call like CVS and you need to talk to the pharmacist, and you go through 5 minutes of trying to get to a pharmacist because they want you to go through their protocols, but it doesn't work for you. So it's longer. So
that's the older paradigm, though. I mean, that's a non-intelligent, smart, chatbot kind of implementation, right? In the old days, you're right. It was just an IVR that had chat. Like it's
happened last week, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there's still plenty of companies that have that. I mean, I hope the point of this is they have a smarter chatbot that won't do that, but I can't tell that from this.
Zero out and go to somebody and get what you need. Instead, they want you to go through all these buttons, and then I want to take a survey. Why would I want to take a survey when I didn't like what I just got?
That's the best time to take a survey, isn't it?
I don't even want to be on the phone with them anymore. So, I mean, we work so like tight on our schedules. Like, I don't want to spend 15 minutes, I just a quick thing. I rented a car last week and I was visiting some family and I filled up the gas tank and then they charged me for one gallon. I'm like, why would they charge me for 1 gallon? So to get that gallon back, I mean, the amount of time it takes, you're like, just keep the money. I mean, they make it so hard to get to a human is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And does this fix that problem or is this just part of the equation?
It's supposed to fix that problem, but obviously you're talking about the old method of deflection, and that's still something a lot of companies have implemented. So it depends, but I mean, obviously it's supposed to help get past that. What does it? I don't know. I can't tell.
But if they are really, kind of serving the critical industries and they're not talking about the nuances of what they're doing, I mean, like at least talk about the, privacy angle of it. Like they're really not tackling anything in particular that makes them special. So it's kind of like they're going half in to that vertical, right? If you service that and that's what you really want to do, like where's your USP behind that? Like how come there's no dialogue,
Right. Sam?
So one thing that I wanted to sort of know from you guys, and I don't know how many of you track the CX industry and how each of the vendors are doing, Talkdesk. I don't know. I don't think I have come across them before as such. But from the AI-powered perspective, do you guys know if anybody else is doing? Robert, I know you guys track probably RingCentral. They are doing something from the AI-powered perspective. One point I would, I'll take slightly different position here. I personally like to deal with AI a lot more than a human, to be completely honest. Okay. And human, when I say not humans like Robert and Michael, obviously any day I would deal with these guys or Julie or John. But when you are dealing with a support agent who is literally 1 year experience, maybe they are trained on 1,000 scenarios. It's not a very fun experience. Okay. AI can do a lot more. So that's why I personally like, and again, healthcare finance is slightly different because you're dealing with different things. AI knows a lot more about pretty much everything about you. So I don't know if I feel comfortable with that. But in general, I like the CX scenario and AI marriage with that.
Yeah, but that's the hybrid. That's the hybrid. Like Bell Canada, and Julie, you'll know this. You used to phone Bell Canada and you go to a first level support person who usually couldn't answer anything beyond the basic, is it plugged into the wall or plug it or unplug it. Then you get to a second level, and then you get to the third level if you had to. And what they did in automating it a bit, make it a bit easier, is instead of having you wait online and listening to music to talk to the first level, they'll say you'll get a message saying, the best thing you can do to try to fix it right now is unplug it, count to 30 seconds, and then plug it back in, and it should fix the problem. Yeah. And in a lot of times it does. So I don't have to spend 10 minutes on the phone waiting to be told, or have you unplugged it yet? I know how to unplug it. In fact, I don't even bother to call half the time anymore when I have a problem. I just unplug it and plug it back in.
Sam, your question about Talkdesk, though, they're a big player in the small mid business customer service area, and they've added others, like they have Talkdesk Sales and other CRM functionality. But they are a fairly well-known player in that space. But I mean, all of the customer service solutions that you're looking at today have chatbots, are moving towards agentic, and have intelligent chatbots and then this human AI collaborative element. So it almost sounds to me like it's a little bit of a catch up for them. But
yeah.
But other players in this space have created personas with these bots as well, or with these agents that they're saying, look, we layered on all this complexity that you don't need to think about, and they're addressing that. How come they're not talking about that? So I wish that they would just go a little bit deeper as well. So it was a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's playing to their target audience, the small and mid-sized business that doesn't have 24/7. And so they're saying, look, here's the opportunity for you to turn this on, have somebody pick up the phone, and then you'll get 98% response because, you got a bot picking up the phone or jumping on the chat. But, beyond that, how well does it work? What's the customer sat ratings after that? I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, Sam, anything on your end? Should we go to the next one, or you got some closing?
Yeah, let's go to the next one, I guess.
So ARIS launched this new solution. This is regarding, process mining, tasks mining. I mean, I'm a big fan of this type of a solution that looks at your data and is able to develop new processes or gear you towards new processes. It's all about the data, I think, in the end. But what's everybody's take on this?
It's a little bit Big Brotherish in my read of this, and I mean, I do know these guys from an RPA perspective, but the idea of this process mining, taking a look at what you're doing, if you'll notice in there, it weaves in and finding the shadow IT and finding the shadow AI. I mean, it's a useful tool when you're talking about process mining, and if you're talking about RPA, but of course that world's changing dramatically as all those vendors race towards agentic AI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so guys, I'll provide some background on these guys, and they used to be in that whole enterprise architecture visibility space, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term, but generally this was the tool for enterprise architect. Before any of the newer players, when you talk about Celonis, LeanIX, Signavio, they were born. ARIS was sort of capturing that space. BPM was big. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with BPM or not. Now BPM has become sort of the tool as well. Pegasystems, they probably would call themselves as BPM, but they are more of the technology tool. This was more of the documentation tool. And now what they are trying to do is they are trying to combine both of these. So in my mind, when I look at this story, it's more of a catch-up because Celonis, they have sort of killed the ARIS market, but there are players such as, I don't know whether you guys are familiar with a company called Ardooq, I believe, ARDOOQ. They are probably the newer tool for the enterprise architecture. I don't know how ARIS and they are playing together. When I Google, I cannot even find ARIS anymore, I guess.
Is that the Software AG product?
Software AG product? Which one is
they
that?
They have an ARIS too that deals with process mining.
Yeah, so it would fall in their territory. So in general, when you look at these tools, so any of the development sort of, what is that called? The IDE. IDE is going to be the environment that you generally get. But now that market is probably controlled by Microsoft because 90% of the developers are probably using tools from Microsoft since they acquired GitHub. So any of the software testing, enterprise architecture, they sort of fall together, but then you have another market, which is your process mining as well as RP. I don't know where that fits in. RP is pretty much everywhere, just like CDP.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to, if you think about those routine task automation kind of things, data entry, those sorts of things, it looked like the offering's pretty strong there, but it's certainly not, it's certainly not a unique play considering, like I said, all the RPA players that were out there. It was really hot. Now they're all moving towards agentic and trying to come up with intelligent RPA.
And you, Sam, I wrote a post about this, comparing ARIS and my strand commonality theory that the Government of Canada Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program funded to support the D&D. And then process mapping. And I created a table of a chart over all of them. Like, the ARIS is 1990s, 1998, 2000 strand commonality. And then you have business process mapping. And you look at the comparisons of all these things and the one common theme, and this is what I looked at in developing my theory, is strand commonality recognizes that within seemingly disparate strands of data, there are attributes that are actually connected and collectively impact the outcome. The trouble is that in most of these instances, business process mapping is they are done on a siloed basis. On the other side, you have connectivity, but how do you know you're connecting with the right agents? I mean, that's where agent-based modeling comes in. You've got internal agents, you've got external agents, and agentic AI, as promising as it is, it's not going to automatically know where to go. It still requires human intervention, human in the loop. Now, some people will contest that, but the reality is it's not human versus AI. It's human working with AI. And I think that's the key that's missing. A lot of organizations throw the technology first, and I often refer to that as equation-based modeling, and they say, well, we're going to create this connectivity, but how do they know it's the right connectivity? How do they know they have the right agents in there and the right kind of information? And that's where you get the breakdown of an internal metaprise and an external metaprise. You've got to be able to first of all map out the agent-based model development model. Otherwise, all you're going to be doing is speeding up processes that are largely inefficient. It's going to go back to the old days of, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, that's really what I'm seeing with this. We have to have more expertise and experience to properly leverage the technology rather than let the technology define how we work.
Well, they make sense to the customers, though, John, because the customers want business impact, not features necessarily. Or they want it to match. I mean, do I care about the technology, or do I care about how it's going to influence my business?
No, well, yeah, but exactly. Well, what you care about is whether or not the technology makes your life easier and actually gives you the right information to make the right decisions. If you have agentic AI agents, I mean, are they really self-learning? What are they learning? What is the baseline for their knowledge? It has to start somewhere. And I just think that a lot of organizations are looking at agentic AI as being this magic dump off. And then hopefully they're going to get it right. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be able to identify. I mean, it was just like with the D&D when they asked me to automate their process for MRO procurement support, their military infrastructure. They said, come in and automate this section, procurement and supply chain. And my first question is what time of day do the orders come in? And they said, what does that have to do with procurement? Well, it turns out that the service department, another agent, they had a whole different metrics to work on. So they would put in their orders and sandbag the parts orders for later in the day with dynamic flux MRO products, a product that cost $100 in the morning, cost $900 at 4:00 in the afternoon. That's how you get the $900 hammer. So if you don't engage the agents, and then externally, when I worked with the suppliers, UPS approached us so we can build in, do automatic way billing. Canada Customs, because at that time, computer components had a priority clearance if you filled it out right. But there's not enough. There's too many silos. And the technology, and to your point, I think what you're saying, which is right, is the technology is not going to break down those silos. It's not going to create the connectivity, because how do you know you're getting the right information that's going to make an impact? And I think that's why most initiatives fail. It's not because the technology is at fault. It's because it's not being utilized properly. It's not being engaged properly. And it goes back to agent-based modeling from the beginning versus equation-based tech-led.
It goes back further to like change management, data management, people, processes, technology, and putting everything in place to be able to use it. But also every industry is different. Every company is different. Every, company with their innovation aptitude is different. I've talked about that in the past. So you can't put them all equal in a bucket and say, hey, this is going to work, because it's impossible.
You're right. But the one thing that is the consistent that you're right on with saying, people, process, technology. And most initiatives undertaken today are technology, process, people, or process, technology, people. And by automating you hit the nail on the head with that. People, process, technology work across any industry within an agent-based model framework, because that's the foundation of it. And I think people sometimes abdicate their responsibility and say, let's automate. And hopefully that'll solve the problem. So that's my take.
I mean, most ERP solutions fail at implementation. They don't necessarily all fail, but when they fail, it's mostly because of the customer, not the vendor. Because
absolutely
not prepared. This also goes down to all these other applications that we're talking about, because of the fact that the same implementation needs to happen. It might be smaller, but it's still at a magnitude where you need those processes and those people.
Boy, you said something really powerful there about the client failure. I mean, Gartner did a report recently saying, is your AI failure is the part of the practitioner or the client? But what's interesting, and this is what I'm seeing very similar to what happened during the .com boom and bust. What's interesting is I'm talking to a lot of senior VPs, CMOs, et cetera, who are saying, we now have VC funding, we now have stock prices to do. Many of them begrudge the fact that they have to take on clients they know will not succeed to meet their quarterly targets. And so in a way, what's happening is you've got this uneven pole of, you've got good quality companies who are saying, okay, I don't think this is going to work, but I have to hit this target to meet the investment and the unicorn status. And on the other side, you have too many practitioners saying, hey, your thing. No one ever got fired for buying IBM. Remember that old mantra? It's like an abdication of responsibility. And look, I have no choice. If they're going to fail, they might as well fail with me than someone else.
Right.
I think that's the other thing too that you brought up there. Like there's Orbis and Capsify, there's RDoc, there's so many in that category. So I mean, I feel like this is really just being bolted on as a sure, it's a great solution, but I mean, for those that are already a part of ARIS and use that environment, right? So this is something more. This is just something to keep them invested in the platform, which I think is fabulous. But I also think that it's just a very crowded category as it is. So yeah.
Yeah, and Robert, thank you so much for bringing those links in the GM. And last time when I checked, I could not find them. So I don't know how you found them. Maybe they need to learn SEO, and maybe they can hire Julie for that. But yeah, so it sounds like they are still alive and they still have their link. But one comment that you mentioned related to software AG and their focus being iPaaS, I don't know if they are really in the iPaaS market, to be completely honest. I don't know how much market share they have in the iPaaS space.
They sold. They actually developed what's called Super iPaaS, which is more of a real-time integration iPaaS, and they sold it to IBM, which was their web method and StreamSets tools about a year ago. So they are focused more on the process mining with the ARIS solution. But yes, you're correct.
So who has web methods right now? IBM owns it?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so web methods definitely was one of the largest tool, I would say. So I don't know why Software AG decided to sell that. If they owned it,
$1 billion.
That's exactly the answer.
Yeah, and actually, I don't even know if it's been positioned at IBM yet within their data fabrics, because it's a gigantic integration tool for IBM consulting. So I have not seen it rebranded yet, or they've just taken the technology and put it into their maybe their garage methodology. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think they rolled it into what they call solutions in the service side, right? So it's an enabler on the services business, but they aren't really going at it directly without the services off.
Yeah. I wrote a piece about Software AG and their Super iPaaS right when they released it, and then it got sold a couple months later, and then I haven't really heard from Web Methods or StreamSets since. So anyway, yada. Any comments that we have in the chat today, or are we kind of a little slow on that with viewers?
No comments, but we have not told them that they should be commenting. So if you guys are in the audience, then you should be commenting your stories, anything you are relating with. We would love to touch them. Okay, so Robert, I don't know if you want to go on the next story, which is the real iPaaS story in my mind.
Well, I mean, I think we're going again with Cleo and programmers, IO. They're partnering in with AI and the technology and integrating the ability to with solutions, specifically, I guess, where we're looking at EDI and how engineers work together. And I guess IBM's a component of this. What do we all think about this, and how does this affect the integration capabilities, specifically with the tools that they're putting together?
Yeah, so I'll give you guys a little background on Cleo.
They're Canadian, by the way?
They are not Canadian, even though it starts with C. I don't believe so they are. But they like to be Canadian because they have named after C. So, so you have that. But Cleo as such, I don't know if they were ever sort of the mainstream iPaaS provider. I always related with them as more of the EDI tool. But there was a time when EDI tools were sort of different. There were vendors, SPS Commerce, Blue Commerce, Cleo would fall under that as well. And then all of these iPaaS vendors, they started developing the EDI capabilities because EDI market share was, sort of captured by these guys. So there's a little overlap, between these two. Cleo, based on what I have personally seen, is they are really in that iPaaS market. They're used as more of the integration platform, but obviously they have the EDI as well. So where my doubt is going to be, okay, where does programmers.io fit in? And this seems more of the real software engineering sort of platform. So I don't know if they are trying to get into that. Generally, EDI is very ERP-centric industries, that play. You don't have much of the custom development in those spaces. But here, programmers.io, I don't know if they are, and this, even though they are calling themselves as programmers.io, but this seems more like a consulting company, to be completely honest. It does not seem like a tool, even though they might have some IP based on that. So that was my understanding of what they have done. I think this is really a consulting company acquisition.
Any other thoughts, John or Michael?
It does actually make me laugh a little bit when I see EDI these days, but it is still, widely used. It's still a little bit like, okay, back to the 90s.
Well, wait a second. What happened to XML? Wasn't that going to be the big thing?
It was gonna, yeah.
I mean, it's like I've never heard of Cleo before, so I'm claiming ignorance on this. There's so many companies out there. I mean, if you look at solution maps and everything, I need a magnifying glass just to read the back label of a Tylenol bottle. So it's hard to get that. But when I'm I still don't. I read that and it doesn't tell me anything. If I don't know the company, I'm not even going to pay attention to it. It doesn't give me any tangible information saying why this is important, how it's different, what way will it work. I mean, it's this, we're teaming up together. I mean, what percentage of M&As really you can help fail? And I'm not saying this is a merger and acquisition, but it's the same kind of idea. I mean, where are these partnerships? What are they doing? You're reading them every day. So to me, it's almost like noise.
I mean, it really just sounds like here we have a new SI partner. I mean, okay, cool.
It's like when I did woodworking in high school and brought home this wine rack, which was hideous, that my mother loved. Other neighbors didn't want anything to do with it, but hey, it was great. I mean, who does this matter to?
So,
I'm
John,
sorry, that's a brush, but yeah, come on.
So, John, in this case, you definitely need a magnifying glass. And the reason for that is because there are two companies that are called Cleo. So one is CLIO and one is CLEO. Okay, and that's very confusing. And they are sort of popular, but they are not popular. Both of them are sort of in the same bucket. So it becomes even more confusing. And I don't know why they named it this way. Again, branding lesson, go to Julie.
Maybe the brand confusion helps their go-to-market. I don't know.
I don't know about that, but what I will say is that I feel like this is thematic with every single one of these. I just feel like we need to get more in-depth when writing these like press release advertorial style stories. I mean, I appreciate it, but I would love to know more. So going back to all these companies, I really hope that we can start to release a little bit more around this. That would be helpful anyways. That would help us to differentiate. So yeah.
So Robert, do you want to do one more? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we can try and do one more. This deals with Crusoe and really more AI, right? And so, I guess it's accelerated by NVIDIA, but is this anything new? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar with Crusoe, but I know that it gives more speed, more, I guess, a better user interface, reduces the complexity. But I mean, do these companies have to publish things like this because I'm trying to find out what the major business impact is beyond saying we have AI and we can do these new things based upon what your competitors are doing or what we expect everybody to already be doing or will be doing. What do we all think?
I mean, I think the managed service piece and the fact that we know, companies are going hybrid on the infrastructure when it comes to AI right now, it's an opportunity. They're, everybody's talking about AI. So look, we can do that too. We have this managed service, cloud service. And I mean, it's fine. Like it would be useful if I needed that. So
Is it marketing or is it technology with business impact or both?
It sounds like marketing and managed services, of course, staffing. So,
Yeah.
Julie, what do you think, or Sam?
So I guess, guys, I wouldn't be totally shocked if these companies like this is probably going to have $1 billion valuation or maybe $1 trillion, to be completely honest. Because right now, the place where we are at, and I don't know whether you guys remember this whole the WP engine, and there were like so many different. I don't know what do you call that. It's not MSP, right? These are really platform providers, but it's very similar to AWS, but more for these small to medium-sized businesses, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if AWS or these companies are going to catch up the real AI infrastructure sort of management capabilities. But there are going to be newer players. So this is probably the newer player, I would say, in that space that, okay, they are sort of, what is that term? The encapsulating the whole in complex infrastructure aspect and really giving the developers control on developing these applications, so you don't have to worry about the other things and technical underpinnings. So, and I don't know, I mean, if anybody's tracking this market, but we are going to see a lot more players, I would say, in this space.
I mean, it does give you access to NVIDIA GPUs and compute power. So, I mean, that's something that would at least be interesting, I suppose, if you're looking for a partner.
Yeah, it's an edge. Mm-hmm.
Well, any other comments? I know we're running short on time. We always like to kind of end with a bang, with everybody giving their 2 cents on where they see things going from this discussion or what they want to kind of tell the audience. So should we start that off? What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, let's do closing advice, I guess.
Closing remarks. Let's start with Julie. So anything you want to say to the audience, what you liked about today, what you want to tell them about what's going on in the technology world that could benefit them, how to market better?
How to market better. Yeah, you know what? I mean, I think that just all in all, when my last comment, just I wish that they would talk a little bit more and kind of celebrate what it is that each of these companies do really well. And that you can see that in messaging too. Like when you go to a website and you see that the H1 is just so, it kind of leans toward weak. And then they wonder, why is it that everybody, like, keep in mind, okay, people are not very good shoppers. Most of the time when they don't actually end up scoring the deal, or it kind of goes frozen or dead or whatever, it's because 40% of deals, they end up that way because they just don't know how to shop, right? So, I mean, that's the issue. So help them. Give them the information that they need. Really think about what you're putting in your H1 on your website and your USB. So, yeah, that'd be my advice.
John?
I'm going to borrow a line from a movie. Show me the results. All of this at the end of the day, you've got to look at the generational rate of initiative failure in procurement, supply chain, et cetera. And to your point, it's a client issue with procure tech companies taking on clients they know they shouldn't. So, but how do you turn that down? But the reality is I'd love to revisit each of these stories 6 months and a year from now and measure their impact. And I look at things over 40 years. I can go back 20 years and remember this and match it to something today. I want to be able to match something. I want to see an outcome of all of this. Otherwise, this is just more information flow. And, what was Aldous Huxley said, truth would get lost in a sea of irrelevance or, I think we're overloaded on information. I think we've got to start seeing more people step up and say, here's the results. Here's what we've talked about. And that's what I'm going to look for. So in 6 months from now, I'm going to look at these stories and I'm going to say, so what? And I don't mean that dismissively, but that's my point.
Well, I'm going to kind of touch back. I talked about supply chain in the past, just kind of bring it up again. I think that the tariffs, where they're worldwide global, will hurt the global economy in some respect. And I think it could be much worse than COVID. I think that a lot of companies need to really look at their strategies with their suppliers, with their operations, with their how this could change their cost drastically, and look how the different industries can be impacted. We talked about the textile industry. I think that's one that, for example, could drastically change because of the global movement of goods and services that it has versus some of the other industries. So I would say we've always talked about this, Sam, that you need to look at your production costs, but the supply chain costs will be a imperative to look at to be successful, to probably stay status quo to kind of weather the storm here.
Yeah,
Michael.
Sure. Well, we spend a lot of time talking about the flashy parts of AI, and believe me, I'm a part of that. I like it. It's cool and interesting and all those things, right? Agentic and generative, but the truth is the back end of this is the part that companies are going to struggle with most and first. And so I like seeing some things about infrastructure and managed services, those kinds of announcements. And I'd like to see more of that. I mean, I think, automation in the data prep, data QA, integration, all those kinds of things are really important to companies, and particularly those small and mid-sized companies that want to use AI for competitive difference, but they're going to struggle with the data if they don't have some better way to do it.
Good point.
Yeah, thanks, guys. From my perspective, today is the Liberation Day, and it can be April Fool's Day as well. So I'm feeling very confused right now, whether it is April Fool's Day or Liberation Day. But I feel very liberated right now, based on my grouchiness as well as and the grumpiness that we could take out on this episode. So on that note, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, Thursday, 11 o'clock.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.